$10,000 is the number everyone talks about. Your first big savings milestone, the one every finance video tells you to chase. But nobody talks about the number right after it, $20,000. And that's actually the one that changes your life. Not because it's twice as much, because of what starts happening to you once you cross it. Here's the first shift, and it's about math, not motivation. At $10,000, if you're earning a solid 8% return in the market, that's about $800 a year working for you, roughly $66 a month. Nice, but it's coffee money. At $20,000, that same 8% return is now generating $1,600 a year, over $130 a month, without you lifting a finger. Your money is now doing real work. And here's the part that actually matters long term. If you're saving $500 a month from zero, it takes you about 35 months, just under 3 years, to hit that first $20,000. But the second $20,000, that only takes about 26 months. Same monthly contribution, but almost a year faster, purely because your first $20,000 is now generating returns while you keep contributing. Push your portfolio out to $500,000, and you're generating $20,000 every 6 months. At $1 million, you're generating it every 90 days. That's the entire engine of compounding, and $20,000 is where you start to actually feel it working. But the bigger shift at $20,000 isn't math, it's psychological. The median American household only has about $8,000 in their bank account, according to Federal Reserve data. If you've hit $20,000, you are sitting at 2.5 times what the typical household has saved. That changes how a setback feels. At $10,000, one bad month can knock you back into 4 figures, and that feels like falling backward. At $20,000, the same setback still leaves you over the 5-figure mark. You stay in the zone where you feel like you're still moving forward, not starting over. That mental shift matters more than people give it credit for. Once you see yourself as someone who's good with money, you start making decisions that match that identity. It becomes something that reinforces itself. Now let's talk about the freedom this actually buys you, because this is a part almost nobody explains properly. When you have zero savings, you're stuck in survival mode. You need whatever job you currently have, because there's no cushion if it disappears. $20,000 changes that equation. If you're living on $2,000 to $3,000 a month, that's 6 to 10 months of runway. Enough time to actually leave a job that's draining you and find something better, instead of grabbing the next thing out of desperation. $10,000 gives you a little breathing room. $20,000 gives you an actual exit door. It's also enough runway to seriously consider switching careers, going back for a certification, or finally testing a side business idea you've been sitting on for years. None of that feels realistic with $10,000 as your entire safety net. It feels genuinely possible with 20. Here's something most people never think about. Being broke is expensive. Overdraft fees, monthly account service charges, not being able to buy in bulk to save money, paying insurance monthly instead of annually, and missing the discount. All of it adds up to a kind of invisible tax on having less money. $20,000 is usually the point where most of those extra costs simply stop applying to you. Once you're past $20,000, you're not just saving anymore, you're what I call entering the investor class. For 2026, the Roth IRA contribution limit is $7,500. If you max that out, you've still got $12,500 left over for an emergency fund and other investments. Try doing that with only $10,000 total, and maxing your Roth would eat 75% of everything you have, which means sacrificing your safety net just to invest. $20,000 lets you do both at the same time. This is also the level where a lot of people can finally build a properly diversified portfolio instead of just owning one or two things. Because some index funds require a minimum investment of a few $1,000s to even get started. There's a psychological benefit here too. When you have real reserves, market dips stop being terrifying. A 15 to 20% drop doesn't wipe you out. It might even be an opportunity, because you actually have spare capital to invest more while prices are down. Compare that to someone who threw their entire first $1,000 into market and panic sold the moment it dropped $150. That panic almost never happens to someone with a real cushion behind them. There's a famous psychology study from the 1970s where researchers gave kids a choice: one marshmallow right now, or two marshmallows if they could wait 15 minutes. The kids who waited went on average, to perform better academically and handle life's setbacks more steadily. Money works the same way. The habit that gets you to $20,000 is the exact same habit. Delayed gratification. That tends to predict long-term financial success. Getting there isn't really about the number. It's proof you built a discipline that everything after this depends on. So if you're not at 20,000 yet, here's exactly how to get there faster. First, know your starting point, your real net worth, and roughly what you're earning and spending each month. You can't fix what you haven't measured. Second, play defense. Track every dollar for 30 days. Most people find $200 to $500 a month in spending they didn't even realize was happening, often on small recurring things like food delivery or subscriptions that quietly add up. Third, play offense. Ask for a raise if you've earned one. Pick up a short-term side hustle or sell things you're not using. Every extra dollar shortens your timeline to 20,000. I'm not a financial advisor, and none of this is financial advice, just the clearest path I can lay out based on the numbers. What you do with it from here is up to you. If this gave you a clearer target to aim for, hit subscribe, because next week I'm breaking down what actually changes once you cross 50,000, and it's a bigger jump than you'd expect.